There are pages in history that were not torn out. They were carefully cut, pressed flat, and slipped into a drawer that locks from the inside. Statues feel like the opposite of that secrecy. They stand in sunlight, they gather pigeons and fingerprints and tourist flashes. Yet the longer you stare, the more you notice what isn't there. A hand that once pinched two fingers together now snapped. A face whose eyes were carefully chiseled smooth, like someone erased the witness. A crown that appeared in sketches but never in stone. What was removed and why? Official reports explain it away: weathering, earthquakes, stray cannon fire, the boredom of looters. But listen to the patterns. Why does a saint lose only his tongue? Why is a warrior's scabbard intact while the object that belongs inside it is gone without dust? Why do records describe a gesture that no longer appears anywhere on stone? 7 statues, 7 vanishings, and in each case the absence is the loudest thing in the room. Some say it's politics, new rulers removing old symbols. Some say it's faith, priests blunting what they considered dangerous. Others whisper that the missing parts were hollows, containers, reliquaries, small vaults inside marble fists and bronze brows. If you've ever stood alone with a statue after closing time, you know the feeling, as if the figure is pretending to be incomplete, like a thief who learned to limp. What did it once hold? What did it once see? Tonight we open the drawer that locks from the inside. We'll follow travel diaries that contradict museum placards. We'll unspool sketches taken before sieges, footnotes that curators never cite, rumors passed in markets where people do not sell what they find, only the story of how they found it. We will listen for the sound the chisel made when it reached the secret inside a knuckle. And we'll ask the questions that get archivists to blink twice before they answer. Who ordered the removal? Who carried the piece away? And who keeps paying to make sure it never returns? You will hear of a vanished hand that once pinched a code, a face smoothed so it could not recognize the living, a heel broken to keep a sentinel from stepping down. You will walk with us through damp crypts, burned attics, ports where crates were listed as agricultural hardware, but crossed the sea too heavily for wheat. When a statue loses a part, a city gains a rumor. Rumors become rules. Do not touch the niche. Do not open the drawer. Do not name the gesture after midnight. Are we protecting the past from dangerous objects, or protecting the present from the past itself? If a symbol survives, does the oath return with it? If the eyes of a god are recovered, who will be the first thing they see? And if the missing piece was not stolen but retired like a weapon set back into velvet, then who decides when it gets drawn again? This archive does not pretend to close cases. It invites you to stand in the doorway a moment longer, to feel the draft where the missing should be. We will not promise safety, only context. We will not promise discovery, only direction. But if you recognize a shape we describe, if a pattern in your own city's stone begins to itch, remember this: the piece may not be lost. It may be waiting behind a wall built thin on purpose. 7 statues. 7 silences cut from loud places. We are going to put our hands into the quiet and see if the quiet grips back. Ready? Then step closer. Do not blink. Count the fingers. Now ask yourself, what is the one thing this statue refuses to show you, and why does it feel like it's watching to see if you notice? Before we begin, a warning for the curious. Names have weight, gestures have memory, and certain absences create their own gravity. If you sense something lean back from the screen, that is not fear. It is recognition. The stone remembers. They say the hand of a ruler tells you more than his crown. In the marble remains of the Colossus of Constantine, towering fragments scattered in Rome's Capitoline museums, the emperor's fingers once stretched skyward, clutching an object no one has truly identified. Some scholars claim it was a Christian symbol, a proclamation that Constantine ruled under the blessing of heaven. Others insist it was a globe, representing the empire's dominance over the known world. But the truth is, The hand is gone. Not broken. Not weathered away. Gone. The fragments we have are almost absurd in scale, a head nearly 3 meters tall, an arm like the trunk of an ancient oak. They're all that's left of a statue that once stood over 12 meters high, watching over the Roman Forum. Imagine the shadow it would have cast across the city's heart. Now all that remains are pieces, surgically separated from one another as if the statue was dismantled with deliberate care. But where did that great hand go? Who took it? And why does no record in the empire's meticulous archives mention its disappearance? Some historians suspect it was melted down during the chaos of the Middle Ages, when marble and bronze were stripped from monuments to fund wars or build churches. But if that were true, why do whispers persist of a strange relic hidden beneath the Vatican? A massive sculpted hand clutching an orb etched with symbols no one has been able to translate? These rumors stretch back centuries, kept alive by letters between Renaissance collectors who spoke of the emperor's divine right in cryptic tones. And then there's the unease, the idea that Constantine's missing hand may have been removed not for profit, but for fear. In Christian lore, the right hand of the ruler carried divine authority, a blessing, or a curse. If the emperor had such a relic created in his likeness, could it have been believed to hold spiritual power? Could the Church, in its infancy, have sought to hide it away to prevent pagan reverence from growing around it? Standing before the shattered remnants in the museum today, you can almost feel it, that something is incomplete, as though the statue's missing hand still exists somewhere in the dark, its marble fingers cold, waiting. If you could find it, would it tell the truth of Constantine's faith? Or reveal a far older secret, one the empire couldn't allow to be carved into stone for all eternity? What if even now, deep in some subterranean vault beneath Rome, that missing hand still points toward something, or someone? They call it a riddle carved in stone. For over 4,500 years, the Great Sphinx of Giza has stared across the desert with a gaze as cold as the limestone it was carved from. But there's something unsettling about that gaze, because it's incomplete. The Sphinx's nose is gone, its beard broken away, its face marred as if by some violent act. The missing features have become almost as famous as the statue itself. And yet, in a land obsessed with recording its own history, there is not a single surviving Egyptian text that tells us exactly what happened. The most common story, the one schoolbooks still tell, is that Napoleon's cannons knocked the nose off during his Egyptian campaign in 1798. But sketches of the Sphinx made decades earlier already show it noseless, proving that tale to be nothing but smoke. Others claim it was destroyed by a 14th century Sufi mystic who considered the Sphinx an idol of pagan worship. Yet the deeper you dig, the stranger the story becomes. Archaeologists studying the stone have found that the break on the Sphinx's face isn't consistent with centuries of wind erosion. It looks deliberate, almost surgical. Ancient chisel marks linger around the base of the missing nose, as though someone tried not just to damage the statue, but to remove a specific feature. Some theories suggest that the Sphinx originally bore a far different expression. A smirk, a grimace, perhaps even a snarl, that didn't align with the political or religious image of later rulers. Erasing the nose might have been a way to erase an identity, and then there's the beard, or what's left of it. Fragments of a stone beard rest today in the British Museum, far from the sands of Giza. But these pieces don't seem to fit perfectly, as though they were an addition made centuries after the Sphinx was first carved. What if the original lacked a beard entirely, and that later rulers added one to tie it to their own reigns? If so, removing the beard might have been an act of rebellion, an attempt to strip away the false history layered onto the monument. In the quiet hours before dawn, the Sphinx looks almost human, its worn face staring past you into some place you can't see. And there's something chilling in the idea that its missing features might not be a result of time's decay, but of human hands, hands that didn't want us to know what the Sphinx originally was. Was it truly the guardian of Khafre's tomb as we're taught? Or did its original face belong to something, or someone, the ancients feared so much they had to destroy it? Perhaps the missing nose and beard were never destroyed at all. Perhaps they were taken, hidden away in some unmarked chamber beneath the plateau, lying in darkness next to carvings that would rewrite everything we think we know about ancient Egypt. South of Cairo, in the wind-scoured desert of Dashur, stands a structure that barely resembles the proud monuments that made Egypt famous. It is not smooth, not golden, not the perfect geometry of Giza's wonders. Instead, it slouches into the sand like a corpse long abandoned. Locals call it El Haram El Madfoun, the buried pyramid. To historians, it is simply the Black Pyramid of Amenemhat III. From a distance, it looks like a jagged mound of rubble. Up close, its walls are a slick, crumbling mass of dark mud brick, almost melting under the sun. This is no accident of age. This pyramid was doomed from the moment it was built. Unlike the timeless limestone blocks of earlier pharaohs, Amenemhat III's engineers chose clay-rich mud brick for its core, encased in a thin limestone skin. The desert wind stripped away that skin centuries ago, revealing the blackened, rotting heart beneath. But the real mystery of the Black Pyramid lies beneath the surface. Archaeologists who have dared to enter describe an interior more like a labyrinth than a tomb, miles of narrow corridors, false doors, and hidden chambers. The ground inside is treacherous, sinking underfoot as if the structure is slowly swallowing itself. Inscriptions warn intruders of the one who guards in silence, though no one can agree whether this refers to a god, a curse, or something else entirely. When it was excavated in the 19th century, explorers found evidence that the pyramid had been looted, but not in the usual sense. The sarcophagus was still there, yet empty. Jewelry and treasures were missing, but so too were entire stone slabs from the inner sanctum, as though they had been carefully removed and taken elsewhere. Why steal the very walls? Some believe those stones contained inscriptions, maps, or rituals meant only for the pharaoh's heirs, knowledge that someone wanted erased from history. There are whispers among local elders that the pyramid was cursed not after construction, but before it was even finished. The surrounding villages tell a story of workers vanishing into the half-built structure, their bodies never recovered. Some claim the pharaoh abandoned it before death, choosing another burial site entirely, leaving the Black Pyramid as a decoy or a prison. Even modern archaeologists tread carefully here. Equipment fails inexplicably inside. Compasses spin without direction. In 1996, a research team reported a low, thrumming vibration deep within the lower chambers, like the hum of a distant machine. Though there is nothing there that should produce sound, that if the Great Pyramid of Giza is a monument to Egypt's glory, the Black Pyramid is a scar, a reminder of an experiment gone wrong, or perhaps a secret gone too far. And it sits there still, sinking slowly into the earth, as though the desert itself is trying to bury it for good. There is a place beneath a sprawling European capital, though no guidebook will tell you exactly which one, where the air seems to move as though the stone walls themselves are inhaling. Locals know the entrance as nothing more than a forgotten iron gate at the end of an overgrown alley. The city planners insist it's sealed, yet those who have found it speak of a narrow passage spiraling downward, far deeper than any public record admits. The tunnel begins innocently enough, brickwork slick with condensation, the slow drip of water echoing in the dark. But within minutes, the walls change. Bricks give way to smooth, seamless stone, cold to the touch, carved in patterns that no one can quite recognize. The temperature drops. The air is unnervingly still, until you notice the faintest push against your skin, like the tunnel is breathing out. Then and again, this strange pulsing air is not tied to the weather above. Rain, snow, summer heat, none of it affects the cycle. Some urban explorers say it matches a human's resting breath, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Others swear it speeds up when you move deeper inside. In the early 20th century, a handful of city workers were sent to investigate reports of gas leakage in the old district. Only 2 returned. Their account, locked in municipal archives until the 1970s, tells of a chamber so vast it swallowed their lantern light, the sound of their own voices returning seconds later, distorted, as if repeated by something just beyond hearing. The surviving men described the air pressure shifting in sudden gusts, not random but as if responding to their footsteps. There are older records still, scribbled notes from the 1600s referencing a breathing vault, where prisoners were kept until they either went mad or joined the whispering. No one has found bones or remains to confirm these stories, but modern expeditions often lose members in the same way. One moment they're walking ahead with the group, the next they are gone and no sound of movement follows. Attempts to map the tunnel fail for a simple reason: the layout changes. A hallway that once led to a dead end might lead to a staircase the next visit. Entire sections vanish or appear overnight, though the city above remains unchanged. Engineers call it structural shifting from soil movement, but the symmetry of the changes is too precise, too deliberate. The breathing has a rhythm, and some claim to hear words within it, vowels stretched and consonants swallowed by the hum of moving air. A few recordings exist, taken in the 1990s, though experts dismiss them as hoaxes. In one clip, the voice, if it is a voice, whispers in an archaic dialect of the city's language, "Come further, where walls remember." Today the official entrance is welded shut. But welded doors can be cut, and there are always those drawn to the idea of something alive beneath the streets. The question isn't whether the tunnel is breathing. The question is, what is it breathing for? Far off the coast, beyond shipping lanes and satellite-mapped waters, lies an island that appears only in tide-weathered journals of 18th-century sailors. They called it Isla Sombra, the Shadowless Isle, and their logbooks are filled with conflicting details. Some claim it was a lush jungle, others a barren stretch of volcanic stone. But all agreed on one impossible truth: once you stepped ashore, your shadow vanished. In the oldest surviving account, dated 1724, Captain Luis Ferrer wrote, "The men grow fearful here. The sun stands high and clear, yet our forms cast no darkness upon the sand. It is as though we are ghosts to the light." His log ends abruptly 3 days later with only the word "empty" scratched repeatedly into the margins. Neither Ferrer nor his crew were seen again. Skeptics argue the shadowlessness could be a visual illusion. Perhaps the sand was too bright, or the light reflected strangely off volcanic glass. But explorers who tried to locate the island in later centuries reported more than optical oddities. One survivor from a 1923 expedition claimed the sky itself looked painted, colors too vibrant, clouds too still. Birds that approached the shoreline would wheel away mid-flight, as if hitting an invisible wall. More unsettling are the stories of disorientation. Those who walked the island's interior described losing all sense of time. Watches stopped. The sun seemed to stall in the sky, locked in an unending afternoon. With no shadows to measure the passing hours, some said days felt like minutes, others that minutes stretched into something unrecognizable. The absence of shadows wasn't just visual, it was physical. Light sources cast no silhouettes. Lanterns at night illuminated objects without leaving darkness behind them. People reported feeling lighter, almost unmoored, as if gravity itself loosened its hold. In more extreme accounts, individuals began to see faint shapes in the air around them, forms that looked like their missing shadows, drifting away into the horizon like smoke. One persistent rumor tells of a stone monolith in the island's center, carved with deep grooves resembling sundials, but all pointing inward toward a single, smooth depression. Standing in that hollow, some said, brought back your shadow, but it wasn't the same. It moved a fraction slower, its edges blurred as if resisting you. Several who regained their shadows this way fell into sudden illness or madness upon returning to the mainland, claiming their other half was still trapped on the island. No modern map acknowledges Isla Sombra, but satellite anomalies in a particular stretch of ocean show patches of sudden light distortion, almost like the reflection of a mirror briefly catching the sun. Nautical warnings advise against anchoring in the area due to unpredictable magnetic interference, though the true cause remains classified. Perhaps the island is gone, claimed by the sea. Or perhaps it's still out there, waiting under a sky too bright for comfort. And if you ever land there, remember, shadows are not just darkness. They are anchors to this world. Without them you may not return the same. In the hills of western Pennsylvania, there's a town the maps have almost forgotten. Official records list it as abandoned. Postal routes no longer service it. Yet if you drive the old back roads long enough, you might see it. Not a ruin, not a ghost town, but something caught between the two. Its buildings stand mostly intact, the paint peeling, the windows clouded with soot. But the strangest thing is the air. It shimmers as though heat is rising from the earth, even in the dead of winter. The place is called Ashford Hollow by the few who dare speak its name. Locals will tell you it burned decades ago in a coal seam fire, an underground inferno that started in 1962 and was never extinguished. The official story ends there. Residents evacuated, the government condemned the land, and the town became another casualty of industrial negligence. But the people who claim to have been there tell a different story. They say the fire didn't drive everyone out. Some stayed. And they didn't just survive the heat. They seemed to change because of it. One traveler passing through in 1981 recalled being flagged down on the main street by a woman in a soot-stained dress. She asked if he was just visiting, and warned him not to stay after sundown. Her voice was calm, almost kind, but her eyes reflected light like embers. He said her skin felt warm when she shook his hand, not just warm, but as if she were standing next to an open furnace. The strange encounters don't end there. Witnesses describe figures walking the streets at night, their outlines hazy, glowing faintly orange as though their bodies held fire under the skin. When approached, they vanish in a puff of smoke, leaving the faint smell of burning wood. The most disturbing part is that some buildings seem occupied. Curtains shift. Doors close quietly. A faint hum, like the sound of a furnace, echoes through the walls. Yet if you knock, no one answers. A few daring explorers claim they stepped inside to find rooms arranged neatly, tables set with plates, but covered in a thin layer of ash. In the fireplace, flames burned without consuming the wood. Researchers who've studied the area insist the remaining heat and fumes from the coal fire create hallucinations. But this doesn't explain the footprints in the snow outside abandoned houses, the fresh food left on counters, or the low rhythmic chanting some say they've heard coming from the old church on the hill. One urban legend insists the townspeople made a pact in the early days of the fire. Faced with losing their homes, they turned to something older than the church, a ritual meant to bind the hearth to the heart. The fire wouldn't take them, but neither would it let them go. It became part of them. Those who linger too long in Ashford Hollow often report a change in their own bodies, a strange warmth in their chest, an ache in their bones on cold nights, and a faint orange glow in their vision just before sleep. One man claimed he left after only an hour, but in the weeks that followed, small scorch marks appeared on his bed sheets where his hands had rested. The official signs still warned trespassers. Danger. Unstable ground. Toxic fumes. But the real danger may not be the air or the collapsing mines. It's the invitation you might not realize you've accepted. Because in Ashford Hollow, the fire is patient. And it always wants more. Deep in the rural heart of Vermont lies a swath of land most locals pretend not to notice. You won't find it on the scenic driving tours or in the brochures that boast about autumn foliage. The road that once led there has been overtaken by wild grass, and if you follow it, you'll see a sagging wooden archway with one word burned into it. Warren. On the other side is an orchard. Or at least it used to be. The apple trees stand in precise rows, their bark darkened, their limbs twisted in ways that seem less like the work of nature and more like slow, deliberate gestures. Some curve into shapes that almost look like hands reaching toward the ground. The story says the Warren family planted this orchard in 1879, hoping to turn it into the largest fruit supplier in the region. For a while they prospered, until the autumn of 1892 when the harvest came in black. Not just rotten, black as if the fruit had been charred from the inside out. The flesh beneath the skin was dry and powdery, and the seeds were gone, leaving only small hollows where they should have been. Neighbors assumed it was disease. But the Warrens insisted something had taken the seeds. Not pests, not mold, but something that had come up from the roots. By the following spring, the orchard was still barren, yet the trees had grown thicker and taller. That year, townsfolk began disappearing. Children mostly. They would wander off while playing or vanish from their beds during the night. Search parties scoured the countryside, but the tracks always seemed to stop at the orchard gate. The sheriff tried sealing off the property. The Warrens themselves were said to have moved away. But a handful of witnesses claimed to have seen the family still there, walking between the rows of trees at twilight, carrying baskets covered with cloth. Sometimes the baskets would tremble as if something inside was moving. When a group of men tried to cut the orchard down in 1895, they didn't make it past the third row before turning back, pale and shaking. One refused to speak for the rest of his life. Another told his wife that the trees had breathed. That when the wind died, he could hear something moving in the hollow spaces where the branches split. Something wet, like the sound of chewing. Locals started calling it the sealed orchard, because no matter how many times someone tried to destroy it, the fence posts and gates would be standing again the next morning, the hinges freshly oiled. In the decades since, the orchard hasn't aged. The trees look exactly as they did in the oldest photographs. Same height, same twisted limbs, same darkened bark. Those who've dared to step inside in modern times report a strange quiet. No birds, no insects. Just the faint smell of something sweet and overripe, like apples left too long in the sun. One urban explorer swore that deep within the rows, he found a clearing with a single tree unlike the rest. Its trunk was pale, almost white, and the ground beneath it was littered with small bones. He thought they were animal remains, until he saw a child's shoe caught between the roots. Some say the orchard still feeds, and what it takes, it keeps. The seeds that vanish are said to be planted elsewhere, deep underground, to grow something that isn't meant for human eyes. Every so often, a traveler goes missing in this part of Vermont. The reports never make national news. And yet, for those who live nearby, there's an unspoken rule. When the wind blows sweet, you don't go outside. And you never follow the scent. Because in the sealed orchard, the fruit is always in season, but you won't like what's inside. They stand before us, stripped of what once defined them. Statues that were meant to endure centuries, now missing hands, faces, crowns, or eyes. Tourists walk by and take photos, guides give explanations that sound neat and tidy, but you know better now. You know the gaps in their stone bodies are not just damage from weather or war, they are wounds that were meant to be inflicted. Warnings carved into history by forces that wanted these statues silenced. Because statues are not just stone. They are guardians of memory. Each missing part was not just decoration, it was a symbol, an idea, a truth. And someone at some point decided that truth was too dangerous to be left intact. Look closely the next time you pass a monument. See the cracks. See the empty sockets where eyes once stared. Ask yourself, Did time take them, or did someone somewhere remove them to make sure you'd never know the full story? The past is still watching. And the pieces we've lost? They might not be gone forever. Some are said to be hidden in vaults, under glass, in places you can't reach but others quietly visit. And when those missing parts are finally returned, they will tell a story that was never meant to be heard. Until then, you've just walked through a gallery of absences. And you know deep down that those who erased these pieces are still out there, waiting for the next statue to fall silent. The forbidden archive will keep looking, because what has vanished has not truly left us.